back, my passive income investors. I like to reacting to Kevin O'Leary's recent opinions surrounding Bitcoin, the inefficiencies, and what he's doing to change the crypto mining sector here, folks. But first, I want to offer you some free Bitcoin. No joke, if you're Canadian or even in the US, there's a platform called ShakePay. If you download this app, open it every day and shake it, you will get 10 to 20 cents in free Bitcoin. Deposit your first $100 using the link in the description below, and you'll even get $10 immediately in cash that you can invest into crypto here, folks. It's an immediate 10% ROI, excluding if you shake it every day. So in the clarity of my transparency, all the wonderful homework I present for you guys, consider hitting that like button. And I just want to remind you, the first half of this video, he's going to talk about carbon emissions and oil companies that later bleeds into the problems surrounding Bitcoin. If you want to skip to this number, this is immediately when he starts talking about Bitcoin. But let's get right into this.
Have you made any changes, Kevin, to your personal portfolio when you look at some of the policy proposals, the return to big government and big spending during the Biden administration? Even if it all doesn't pass, which is very unlikely, but even if some of it passes, has that sort of informed your portfolio decisions lately?
Yes, it has, since we last talked. I have removed hydrocarbons from my core holdings. I used to be a big shareholder in Chevron, Exxon, Schlumberger. They are all gone. And it's not that I don't love oil companies. I think they're, a very viable part of the economy, and they're doing their hardest to clean themselves up towards the ESG mandates. But here's the problem. I have many companies that I'm an investor in that service institutional clients, whether it's, involved in fintech or whether it's in the ETF markets, whatever. We listen very closely to what our clients want. And today, institutions, they have sustainability committees. They have ethics committees that sit on top of their investment allocation committees. And so if you're bringing in an idea, let's go to a 3.5% weighting in Chevron, which is a fantastic balance sheet, by the way, you're probably going to get shot down. And why that should bother you as a shareholder is you always want a core position to have it. The incremental buyer should always be an institution, should always be a sovereign. They're the ones that provide liquidity. But all of a sudden, you start to see these stocks being removed. Even the Larry Fink letter of just a couple of weeks ago that slammed the sector around ESG concerns. This is a big problem because what happens is you actually get a situation where, because you're losing the incremental buyer over and over and over again as they duck out of hydrocarbons, your price earnings ratios collapse. They go down. The companies still deliver earnings, but the PE they trade at diminishes. So I would argue you're going to have an underperforming sector in energy this year, regardless of whether oil's $60 or $70.
So this is relatively interesting and does relate to Bitcoin. You'll see why in a second. However, oil companies, I've never been a fan of them. I live up in Canada. Many of you that live up north here are well aware of carbon tax that drove out a lot of the oil industry from Canada already. There's fears that they're going to be introducing this in the States. And again, guys, it's just the general look and feel. Even though a lot of these oil conglomerates are transitioning into renewables, like Kevin O'Leary says, it's just the political and just the drama on the back end of companies and institutions trying to make big investments, make their corporation look good in the public eye. Oil companies, unfortunately, like many other sin stock sectors, I think have this issue where it's harder and harder getting public traction and investment institutional money. And I mean, Kevin O'Leary says this a lot about even MindMed, that if you can't get the institutions on board, I'm not wasting my time here, right? But there's an interesting pivot here where they transition this into why Bitcoin is kind of this frowned upon thing, because the crypto mining sector is largely based off these hydrocarbons, coal, and a lot of these, emission polluters. So let's just continue to listen, because he does touch base on how much Bitcoin he holds as well.
That's a big move for me. I've also started to adjust for inflation because I think another $2 trillion coming out of the helicopter sky being printed is going to show up in inflation somewhere. And I've reduced my holdings from 50-50 fixed income equity down to 70% equities now, and 30% fixed income, and I've put on a 3% weighting in Bitcoin, which is new for me, and that was an interesting transaction.
Yeah, well, I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you're finally now playing in the crypto space. Are you using it as a hedge when it comes to inflation? Why include that in the portfolio?
Well, I am using it as a hedge. I'm considering it as property, and I think it acts that way. I mean, it is volatile. There's no question about it. There is a big problem brewing in this space because I've mentioned this a couple of times. when I disclosed that I was moving to 3% weighting, I got a mountain of calls from institutional investors saying, wait a second, where are those coins from? And I said, well, I mean, everybody knows you can tell the time of creation, but you can't tell location of creation, because currently 60% of coins mined in Bitcoin come from China, where they don't care about sustainability, and they certainly have issues around human rights. And so there are many institutional clients that do not want to own so-called blood coin from China. And as a result, we've got a really interesting situation emerging that, the actual provenance of a coin over time, one that's mined sustainably, one that's mined in a jurisdiction that supports human rights and everything else, the ethics committee's approval could be worth more than just a generic coin that can't prove its provenance. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen, but I have certainly shifted my holdings. I don't own random, ETFs with Bloodcoin in them. I know the provenance of where my wallet coins were mined.
That's so funny that he calls them blood coins. I don't get the exact referencing here because this is something that I've never deep dived down into. I'm always so focused on the US crypto miners, but I guess in China, because they don't have kind of emission rules, that people are just doing whatever they can to set up these mining facilities and just driving insane amounts of inefficient power that's causing carbon emissions, right? But it's even more incredible too, because in the Canadian, the US side of the border, because we have a little bit chillier weather, even in Alaska, they're building these massive platforms to basically that are really low energy, cost efficient. They're working with the grid supplies. They're even tapping into natural energy sources, and some of them even using ground heat. I think a lot of the Alaskan ones are generating, what do they call it when you're generating heat out of the ground to generate the power? Like a lot of awesome stuff going on in this space right now that gives a lot more hope. Kevin O'Leary is really harsh about this because, like he says, there's no real way to tell where the crypto is actually coming from. But I find this interesting how politically uptight a lot of these institutional buyers are and how they look at it on the big scale of things. But I guess when you're investing billions of dollars looking into the crypto space, guys, these are kind of these geopolitical questions that do come into mind. But let's listen to the rest of this.
Now, and that means I've had to take equity positions in miners. I've had to start investing in them with the covenants in place that I would like to be paid back in a royalty of a clean coin. And I don't know if I'm the only person dealing with this. I suggest not. There is a huge problem going on in this industry, and you're going to see it come to a head at the June 4th, June 5th cryptocurrency here in Miami, crypto conference here in Miami. The industry has done a poor job in lobbying its case around sustainability. I spend a lot of time talking to CEOs of miners and various entities that want me to invest in their mining operations. Collectively, they've done a horrible job. They don't push back, and I'm hoping to be part of that solution. I'm trying to organize now a council of sustainability, certainly where I'll be investing in the companies that do set sustainable mandates. They will be the ones I invest in, and I would like to make them a showcase for the industry that we care about sustainability. There's no reason a North American miner can't lead the way and take away the leadership from the Chinese who do not mine sustainably. Now, that may not matter to you, but it matters to a lot of institutions. And until everybody gets on board and stops burning coal to create electricity to mine coin, it's going to start to have a huge differentiation like oil and water. We have got to fix this industry, and we also have to go back to our politicians in various jurisdictions, including Europe, including Canada, including in the States, where there's a threat now that some governors are talking about making Bitcoin mining illegal in their state if they don't clean up their act around sustainability. So this is a big, big issue in crypto space right now.
So look, Kevin O'Leary is getting very heated about this, and I can completely understand why. But again, on the Western world of things, I think crypto mining is actually fairly sufficient, except for I imagine a lot of people in their homes. And the good thing about the crypto space, even though this is a problem, and let's say some kind of political shutdown does happen, I don't think it's going to severely hinder the blockchain by any major degrees. The blockchain is a global technology. It's all over the world, guys. It's so hard to keep up with exactly where all the Bitcoins are being mined because some of them are in people's parents' basements. And for all you know, I could truly be a Bitcoin miner here, but I think this really perspective and this growing conversation is really building in and solidifying the true use case and the interest in Bitcoin and blockchain. And I'm not going to be giving you guys a full bull case here. I as well allocate somewhere between, I'm going to try and get about 3 to 5% of my capital into Bitcoin, primarily focused toward my emergency fund, because as I try and build up my 6 to 12 months worth of expenses stance is I want to take about 30% of that and just drop it into Bitcoin for liquidity and just, to hopefully fight inflation purposes. And I don't think people understand the fact that, like, I was trying to explain to my friends that, like, if you're buying Bitcoin, don't worry about selling it, because, like, just leave it as part of your emergency fund. And if you ever have to tap into it, you can literally give it to companies that'll loan you cash against it and hold on to your Bitcoin, and then you can pay them back over time. And if you don't, they just keep your Bitcoin. But it's just incredible that it's become such this liquid asset that is becoming widely accepted and even usable in transaction purposes. So if you do end up owing somebody money, hey, it's now a bartering tool where you can say, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? I can send it to you, and no government BS, no tax implications. It is a very fascinating conversation that's widely being expanded well beyond Dogecoin into Mark Cuban's conversations around that specifically. And just the fact that blockchain is eventually going to be adopted into the stock market, financial institutions, the way musicians make artists, the fact that we're already seeing it in NFTs, guys. It's a really fascinating overall conversation that I want to pass off to you at this point. What do you think about Kevin O'Leary's thoughts on the crypto space in that description below? And do you think the energy production is going to be a big problem? And if governments would even consider banning it, or how do you ban it is even a good question. But in light of all this, stay cool, stay awesome, and I look forward to catching you tomorrow.